Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
For the past 50 years, Colorado photographer and graphic artist Rob Decker has been traveling across the country exploring and photographing the places that have inspired Americans for generations. That's right, we're talking about national parks. He's on a journey to create iconic images of all 60 national parks, each reminiscent of the Works Progress administration of the 1930s and 40s. So his images are available as posters, postcards, and canvas prints. You can go to his website, national-park-posters.com. And we're excited to have Rob join us here on Big Blend Radio today to talk about his park adventures, of course, his art and photography, and apparently some ansel-adams history there. So welcome to the show, Rob. How are you?
Great. I'm fine, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Hey, we're both excited about this. We love to meet other park travelers and preferably in a park, but today we'll do it over the phone as we do.
Great.
But yes, tell us a little bit about your very first experience in a national park. Did the camera come first or the park?
Well, the park came first. The camera followed along pretty closely behind that. But I grew up in Northern California, and Yosemite National Park was a pretty quick 4-hour drive back in the day. And we just pulled into the valley, and you could just basically camp anywhere. There were no reservations, no reservation systems. I don't even think there were numbers on the campgrounds. And we spent a lot of time there over the years. And then I think I was 6 years old the first time that I went camping with my family there. And I was 8 years old the first time I picked up a camera. And
wow.
So I started pretty early on.
Wow, that's amazing.
I gave Lisa a camera when she was a kid, but it was really a cardboard box.
Yep, I went around photographing, but I learned composition.
Sure.
When we were back in Kenya. We were exploring Kenya's national parks in those days. But yeah, definitely at that point, wasn't really like, hey, let a kid go run off with a camera when you can't really, produce all the film.
And everything was so hard.
Right. No, that's very true. Yeah. Now, my parents were both photographers, and my grandfather was actually an avid photographer. He built a lot of his own darkroom equipment, and
oh, cool.
He gave me a Kodak Duoflex camera, which is the old Brownie style camera where you look down through the glass and had a focus knob and rolled in 120 roll film, black and white roll film, and I think you got 10 or 12 exposures on a roll. But you're right. Then you had to turn around and process the film and have the prints made, and that was before it was things had kind of gotten automated and less expensive.
Yeah, now it's a little different. Now we can produce everything on our computers. Do you work everything digitally now that we're in that world, or do you sometimes go out and, do things on, do we even have actual film anymore?
I don't know.
You can buy it, but yeah. I held off on digital for a long, long time, but through a lot of the other work that I was doing, I just spent a lot of time working in Photoshop and in Lightroom, and really, I got my 10,000 hours in, and so you can just do so much with the digital darkroom that it became an easy switch once I kind of made that leap.
Yeah. Now here we all are. Now we have the selfie revolution, right? So that's a whole new way of
right.
No, everybody be careful. Please don't fall in the Grand Canyon.
Right.
Don't want you doing
I like to say that everybody has a camera, but not everybody's a photographer.
That's right. That's a really important thing because, just in the world of, the travel photographers we deal with in our shows and in our magazines, they deal with that. People it's an issue. And it's where also people think you can steal your images. Now there's issues on, social media and websites where people steal each other's. Is that a hard thing for you to deal with your work up on websites and having to do all that side of the marketing, that your images do go out everywhere?
Yeah, and I have had them pirated in a variety of different places, and it becomes my responsibility to go out and fix that problem, which is which is not what I want to spend my time doing. But clearly, those people don't have the rights to do it. And the problem with my work is that it is reminiscent of the old WPA posters, and a lot of people just really, I think, honestly, don't know the difference, and they think that these are in the public domain.
Oh.
And certainly there are a lot of them that you can go to the Library of Congress and you can download fairly high resolution images and you can print them out. And some people actually do that and sell the old ones. But I've had to contact lots of people over the years and let them know that that mine are not in the public domain, and to take them off their website or whatever. And for the most part, they really had no idea that mine were any different than the original stuff.
Wow. And they do, because it's so neat to have someone out there creating these images, and it's something fresh, and at the same time having that old school style. It's like, to me, your work also reminds me of that excitement you get when you go to a national park. Like you go outside the sequoias and you've got, that carving of the Indian, like it's almost like a totem pole in a way. All those different, the signs when you go in are iconic, those works of art. And so when you see your posters, it really gives you that sense of place as well. And then, they're iconic. I mean, these are iconic places with iconic images that you're doing. But it's interesting, we talk about the WPA. I do want to touch on that for folks who may not know about the WPA, because this was an interesting time in our country. And this was really, there were different projects, but there was also like the federal art project, right?
Right. Yeah. It's the Depression era, prior to World War II, and the WPA as a whole put, I'm not sure what the numbers are, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people to work, building, bridges and roads and airports. And we were just kind of getting into, commercial aviation. And they put an airport in almost every, kind of major city at the time. And there was just tons of kind of infrastructure to kind of work. And then the Federal Art Project did kind of focus in on, creating a lot of this artwork that encouraged people to get out and see America, or to go to the theater. It was a wide variety of artwork there that leading into even World War II. There's the loose lips sinks ships. There's a poster for that about not letting the enemy hear any of your phone conversations or whatnot. So it covered a wide variety of stuff. But the Federal Art Project was pretty big, and I think about 35,000 different posters were created for all these different subjects.
Wow, that's amazing. And the park's getting them too. That's so cool, because also the role of, I know that you give 10%, right, of your earnings or your profits every year to various organizations that support national parks and on the educational front. I want to talk about some of those organizations, but the other part that I think that is so important about the role of art in parks and capturing the images, and that it goes around, and sometimes people don't get to those parks. Sometimes that's your inspiration to get there, but it's a way of promoting the beauty of our country. And the more people see them, the more I think artwork helps in protecting them, in regards to making you want to keep them around. Right,
absolutely. Yeah, no, I have a lot of customers who clearly have just gotten back from a big trip, and they want one of these posters to kind of remember their trip by. But I also get a lot of comments saying, what state is in this park? What state is this park in? I really want to go there. Now it's on my bucket list because they hadn't been aware of it before, and now it's something they want to go and see.
And now you've got posters, you've got artist proofs, which is interesting because isn't that the first run of a print?
Right. So as we get the press all ready to run and run out the entire edition, we pull the first 25 prints off the press, and we leave the pressman's color bars at the bottom, which is what he uses to make sure that all the colors are aligned and registered and the colors are correct. And so it's just kind of a limited edition within the limited edition. That they're just kind of special, and they're quite popular.
Now, the other part I wanted to touch on too, Nancy and I have a history of publishing, and actually back in the day of printed magazines.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So we don't do that anymore. But we were always very concerned, when we chose what printer we worked with and the paper that was used.
Mm-hmm.
And we printed in a printer up in Vegas, actually, at one point, and there was a whole difference of ink. It was soy-based, and so
Right.
you do that too, right? You use soy-based inks, and then also, which is better on the environment, but conservation paper. What is that?
So it's a paper by Nina, is the paper company, and Conservation is this particular product that they have. It's 100% recycled paper. It's domestically produced, and again, you're right. We use soy-based inks. Most inks are petroleum-based. And the printer I use here in Colorado, G&K Printing, they're extremely green. They recycle everything. They're certified by the Forest Stewardship Council and the Rainforest Alliance, and so it's a great partnership.
That's nice. And what you're printing here in this country,
How about
promoting
that?
America's treasures with American
Right.
products. I love it. American
Yeah,
craft
right. I hate going into a national park and looking at some of the merchandise and the label says "Made in China." That just doesn't seem
know.
right.
Exactly.
It's like, what? That's wrong. Now the canvas prints, that's neat too, that you do that for people.
Yeah, so I started getting a lot of requests for, different sizes or larger sizes, because my posters are 13 inches by 19 inches, which was just a really common size back in the WPA era. So, I really kind of wanted to focus on that and keep them all consistent. But did start getting some requests for some other things. So I'm using a company in Texas who is super high end and do stuff for museums and a lot of big companies, and it's amazing. It's I got some. You can go up to 2 feet by 3 feet with them, and they look fabulous even at that larger size. Yeah.
Oh, I dig that.
Yeah.
It's like having a mural. And I know that people can go online on your website, national-park-posters.com. And you need to type it that way. You have to type it that way. No S on there. So national-park-posters.com. But do you also work with, like different stores that are in like the gateway communities or in the parks themselves?
I do a little bit. I really kind of been focusing on the online side, just because my goal really is first and foremost to get out there and get to these parks and capture these images and create the posters and then make them available, and creating and nurturing those retail relationships is a time-consuming process. And so I really haven't gotten into that much. They are available at the Cuyahoga Valley National Park Visitor Center and bookstore there. And primarily because they contacted me and asked if they could carry them in the store. So
That's cool.
Again, I really haven't pursued it, but yeah, that was nice that they reached out to me.
That's nice. Yeah. So this is, neat too, because I want to go back into your history of actually working with ansel-adams, or he taught you? Did you go to a course? How did that happen?
So he taught.
That's like meeting John Muir.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, it was amazing. He held programs in Yosemite and some other places as well, but primarily in Yosemite National Park. And there was an application process and submitting a portfolio. And I remember the process of it was kind of more intense than applying for college and waiting for that acceptance letter. And I was fortunate enough to be accepted, and spent a week in Yosemite, and had times where we were out in the field and he was instructing us, and some darkroom time, and as part of the program there were also some other photographers that taught different things. We experimented with Polaroid film. He was actually a friend of Edward Land's of Polaroid fame, and we had all this film to play with, and just a lot of experimentation, which is part of photography or any sort of art, really. And but yeah, so it was an amazing experience. And also in the evenings there was some social time, and met his wife Virginia, and I was pretty young. I was 19 years old, and I was probably 30 plus years younger than most everybody else who was there. I believe he was 84 years old at the time.
Wow.
And so I was a lot younger than he was.
But it's still, I mean, that's epic. I mean, I think it's inspiring too. And also, you know, you were also doing a lot of black and white photography. And that's such an interesting change too, because I know a lot of people are doing color, they're making it black and white. But when you were doing, you know, that kind of photography, do you think that helps you in regards to what you're doing in the graphic side of creating these posters? Just kind of getting, I don't know, there's something very simplistic, and I don't know if that's the right word, with black and white photography. There's a different vibe. And the same thing with the posters, where it just makes it iconic. I don't know how to explain.
Right.
Help me.
Yeah, no, I think working with black and white, and I did it for a long, long time. And, you know, we used to roll our own film into the film canisters and develop the film and made enlargements and, you know, put them through the developer and the stop bath and the fixer and hung them up to dry in the darkroom. And, you know, I think really having that experience and that appreciation for the process, you know, is something that most people, certainly today, will never have, because they're just going to use their cell phone camera and take a shot, and maybe they'll send it off to someplace to have a print made, or maybe not even. So I think you know, understanding the process and kind of all phases of it too, from you know, taking a picture and developing the film, and then making an enlargement and developing that enlargement. And that was a big part of Ansel-Adams' process as well, was really manipulating everything, both in developing the film and then developing the print. And so, you know, I think, you know, I'm not sure exactly how that translates into the kind of graphic art side of it, but I think having a full understanding of the process of how to, you know, start from an idea and end up with a finished print or finished product is something that not everybody gets to do these days.
I think it's hard to work just on black and white, you know, because I think you really have to have a good sense of tones and balance more than color. I mean, color can get, you know, some people Photoshop to the point that their photo doesn't look like a photo.
Right.
Or a painting.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you get really, really bright colors that aren't really there.
Sure.
But yeah, in black and white, there's only so far you can go without ruining it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know?
Right. And I think, I'm sure that's, you know, had an impact on what I'm doing currently, is really understanding the range of light and exposure and how to capture, you know, the full image. And actually one of the techniques that I use is called HDR photography, which is now kind of available on cameras, on cell phone cameras as well, but it stands for high dynamic range. And what it allows you to do is to create, you know, at a minimum, an underexposed shot, a normally exposed, and an overexposed shot. And what that allows you to do is to pull things out of the shadows or out of the highlights that you can't do if you're just kind of in that middle image.
Okay. Yeah.
And by merging those three images together, and sometimes I'll shoot as many as 9 images that really, you know, go from, you know, really underexposed to really overexposed. And you can, it's really amazing how you can extend the dynamic range of what you can capture with film, because you just can't do it with that single shot, because it's just kind of averaging and trying to create a, you know, a reasonably good shot. But once you create a series of these images, you kind of stack them, overlay them together, and merge them, and are able to pull out the you know, again, either the, you know, stuff that's really kind of in the highlights. It's like clouds. You can pull out so much more information because they just usually kind of want to get very white. And there's things in the shadows that get very black, and you can pull a lot of that stuff out and see a lot more detail in the shadows. So I do that with these posters because it allows me to gather a lot more information from the image, and then I've got a little bit more to work with when I start to kind of manipulate it and run it through this process I've developed that kind of creates this you know, WPA graphic art style.
I love it. The Point Reyes is one of my favorites, and That's always a nice climb down there to get to the lighthouse. That's a trip for people.
Going down's fine. It's going up that's the problem.
It reminds us of the tip of South Africa. When we were in South Africa, we went down to the very tip, and you could see the two oceans meet, or basically crash up against each other.
Right.
And then you go all the way down there, and then you come back and get chased by baboons.
Yeah, that was
so I'll take Point Reyes.
Right. Yeah.
But I think what you were talking about too is really interesting about that technique is, looking at the redwoods and muir woods that you've done, because the sequoias, like when I was in there, I know those are the redwoods. They're all the same family, but that can be really difficult to get that balance. And forests are very difficult because of that darkness, and then you get the little, light coming through, the little light rays, and it's really hard to, if you don't know what you're doing, to keep that balance there and still be able to see what's in the shadows. So that's what I really love how you've done that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. No, there's every park presents a challenge in one way or another. Sometimes it's the weather or just the lighting. But something like the sequoias, it's very hard to photograph because they are so huge.
Yeah.
Other places like Olympic National Park, you've got 70 miles of coastline, you've got high mountain peaks, you've got rainforest. So what's that iconic shot? So sometimes that's the challenge, is to what's the shot that people are really gonna identify with, and maybe that's the image they've taken away in their mind as well.
Now, did you have fun in Saguaro National Park? We have to ask since we're here in Tucson.
Yeah, actually got to both sides of the park, and we were there in the spring. Just the ideal time. Everything was blooming. It was so loud, the sound of the bees and the insects. They were humming along, and actually it wasn't too hot, and so it was beautiful. I love the desert. Again, I grew up in California, spent a lot of time in the West, so that was a very enjoyable trip.
Now, what was the last park you were in?
So the last park that I was in was Redwood National Park up in Northern California.
Oh, beautiful. Did you see any salamanders?
No.
You kind of have to turn things over to do that.
I know.
Right?
I know, but I would think about them. But that's such a beautiful area.
It really is.
Do you go on a big road trip when you travel, or do you go to a specific park and camp there? Or tell us about your travel mode.
It really kind of depends. I've done, a variety of things. One trip was my wife and I flew to Las Vegas, met my brother and his wife. We rented a car and we drove back through Utah and did all 5 national parks in Utah on a big road trip. And other times we'll just get to one park and hang out, camp out there for as long as we can or have the time for. So really kind of a variety of things. When I was at Redwoods, we actually went to Muir Woods, then up to Redwood, and then back to Point Reyes. So that was, we were able to go to those 3 on that one particular trip.
Nice trip. I know that drive. That's cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. So where's your next one?
Well, that's a good question. I'm looking at North Cascades in Washington. And I've been thinking about that very recently because it's been so hot in Colorado. I'm thinking it might be a little cooler up there.
Wow, isn't that weird? Like, whenever we think of Colorado, it's immediately snow, but it's not true. But that's what I think of.
I always think of it as cool.
Yeah, I think of and mountain goats.
Right. We're in the desert. We're in the desert out here down at the bottom of the hill, so it's it can get pretty hot in the summertime. But yeah, and Theodore Roosevelt is the other one that at this point in time I get a lot of requests for, and so those 2 are probably on the short list. There actually aren't too many more parks in the continental United States that I have left to do. Congaree, Great Basin, Channel Islands, Theodore Roosevelt, and North Cascades, and then there are 8 parks in Alaska, and that's going to be a big trip, and
Yeah.
Haven't made the big plans for that one yet.
It's cool. Now, so you've been to the 60th one, the St. Louis one? With the
Not recently. I have been there, but before it was renamed.
Yeah. I can't wait to see that because that's going to be cool. That's going to make a nice poster. Yeah. I think that's going to be iconic. So we have that as the 60th one. Do you ever see yourself stepping out of the national park zone and doing like the national monument, the national historical park, that kind of thing?
So funny you should ask that. I actually just got back on Thursday from an East Coast trip and went to New York, and we went to the Statue of Liberty, and then we went on to Philadelphia and to the Independence National Historical Park, and then on to Washington D.C. and of course all of the big major monuments there. So those ones will actually I'll be on press probably next week with the Statue of Liberty and Independence Hall, the Lincoln Memorial, and the Jefferson Memorial.
So are you going to then expand to all of them?
Yeah,
every
we like
single park unit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, certainly there's an opportunity to do that. My focus really has been on the national parks themselves, and we just thought we'd take a little detour this summer, and in fact we were in Washington D.C. for the 4th of July as well. So it was kind of a fun trip to do that all kind of at that time, Independence Day, and so and there are a lot of places that do get a lot more visitorship. Cape Cod National Seashore, Cape Hatteras, that get more visitors than say someplace like Great Basin National Park in Nevada. And so so kind of along the way, as I'm trying to tick off all of the national parks, there are a lot of other national park units that I'll certainly be visiting and most likely be creating posters for those as well.
Excellent. Now, I was looking at not only that you do financial contributions to different organizations, but then you also donate posters and postcards, so that different organizations can use them as fundraisers. I think that's also very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've done that with the Glacier Conservancy and Yellowstone Forever and Washington National Park Fund. And so, I know that they've been able to use those to raise some money in their big fundraisers and silent auctions and things. And so it's been great to be able to participate at that level as well.
That's nice. I think it's, I think there's something about that in what we do as business owners is that there's got to be a giving back part of your business in some way, whether it's volunteering, financial, donation, whatever it is, you have to be part of that. And, with yours, this is like a national community, right? Then there's local communities, but you're definitely national with what you're doing, but working with all these different associations, which I think the Western National Parks Association is just up the road from us. And that's cool.
Right.
I'm glad you gave to them, but sometimes we always go and give a donation to a main national or international organization, which is awesome to do. But I think it's also really unique because you're giving to organizations that are working on projects. Like I know for the Yosemite Conservancy, they were working with helping the Mariposa Grove of trees, things like that. And I think these are the ones that they get. The national ones are awesome. Again, I just want to say that because we love them and work with them and interview them. But there's something about working with these localized organizations because they really help with education. Some of them do ranger programs even. There's education, there's rehabilitation parts for park restoration projects. So I really love that you do that. How do you pick who you're going to work with?
Well, part of it's kind of been as I kind of work through these different parks. It becomes obvious. I've become acquainted with. Sometimes I've met people while I'm at the park who are working at the visitor center or the conservancy store. Had an opportunity to meet with some of the directors or people who work at those places, and so started making those connections, and those become kind of obvious places. Certainly the Western National Parks Association covers a great many parks and a lot of my favorites, so that's kind of an easy choice. And in fact, when I can, I like to earmark stuff for education, because one of the things I think is really important is that, aside from protecting what we have now and stuff, we really need to kind of create this next generation of national park supporters. Younger people who need to lend their voice to this cause as time goes by here. And so I know that with the Western National Parks Association, the donation, I got a nice letter back saying that my donation allowed 250 kids to get through their junior ranger program. So
that's awesome. I love hearing things like that. And I think you're right. Nancy and I have a project we're working on, and really getting folks to. There's the activism side of it, but there's the educational side, and I think that's important. Like the Junior Ranger program is huge. How can we love our parks? How can we be stewards of not only the land but our history? Because every park has history that's connected to us. And I think sometimes that's also something important, that we've got to protect our history. When you go into a park, I don't care how natural it is, there's human history in there too. There's geological history. So I think creating stewards, and it's a good role model. As a business owner, that's a good role model to see somebody else doing that. And, for the youth. And I think your art also inspires them to think, oh, I can go do art in the park. And that's something too, where I know we're doing an interview with Weir Farm up in Connecticut. And it's interesting because they have programs where they have suppliers where kids can go in and draw the farmhouse, or these different programs. And I think that's the thing too. I mean, that's how our parks got started, was through photography.
Sure. And drawings and absolutely.
Yeah. So you're continuing that legacy, which is exciting. So we have to ask you this, since you are a park traveler. Okay, so we have a program. It's all about 1-hour walks, and it's an initiative to get people to take at least a 1-hour walk once a week, just for the health of it. Go get some fresh air, hopefully in a national park or a local park, state, community, neighborhood, whatever you need to do downtown to get out there and take a walk. But one cool thing to do, you can, walk and just, enjoy yourself and have your own thoughts and creative mind, or sometimes take someone with you so you can have a good in-depth conversation while you walk. So what we want to know is, if you could take a walk in any park, on any trail, where would it be? And if you could walk with anyone in the world, alive or passed on, who would it be, and what do you want to talk to them about?
You put me on the spot there, aren't you?
I know, huh? Let's tell you about that.
I could say, Yosemite and Ansel-Adams, but I already did that. I was lucky enough to do that.
This is crazy. Other people use that as their answer, and like, you've done it.
Actually, kind of in that vein, I mean, I think it would have been pretty amazing to walk through what is now Muir Woods with John Muir. That would have been a pretty amazing conversation. He was basically a poet as well as an environmentalist and a conservationist, and he influenced a lot of people. I'm sure some of the conversations that he had with people in his day who really made an impact on the national parks. That could have been an interesting conversation.
I'd like that. And that specific park, the Muir Woods, to me it's such a great story of conservation.
It really is.
Standing up to, and that was the last stand of redwoods in that area, and to stand up and say, hey, we want this, and name it after him. And it would be cool to walk with him through there.
I think he'd be really proud.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know if you heard this. This is, sorry, just recently, the Save the Redwoods League just acquired an area in Sonoma County. It's 30% larger than Muir Woods. It's huge old growth coastal redwoods that they were just able to acquire, and they're going to make that open to the public as well. So Richardson, I think it's going to be called the Richardson something or other.
Wow, how cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I think a friend took us around there once, like years ago. He was driving us around it's part of the breadfruit.
I was,
No, I remember going out, and it was like just no one knew about it, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Unless you were
local. It was
local.
private for over 100 years, almost 150 years. It was private property. So so
that's exciting.
It is.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, we need as much land as we can save.
Exactly. The more we can save, we were talking to a naturalist for the National Wildlife Federation, David Mazajewski, comes on our shows all the time, and we were talking about the importance of native plants and growing native plants, and he said the more we can do in our neighborhoods, in our cities, the more land we can save that is natural habitat, the less we're going to have these dead zones. And we always think about dead zones in the ocean from oil spills and things like that. But when you think about these spaces, like having parks that are urban settings, like Santa Monica National Recreation Area, is so important to the community's health. Not only for the land, it's that really good balance. So that's exciting. That's really good news. That's the best news all day. Awesome. Rob, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Again, everyone, national-park-posters.com is also on Facebook and Twitter. And, keep up with him on his website, too. He's got a great blog and keeps you posted on different national park birthdays and all kinds of good stuff. But we want to thank our sponsor today, which is the National Parks Arts Foundation. They create unique artist-in-residence programs in park units. Basically, if you're an artist, a musician, a writer, a poet, a filmmaker, a dancer, and a military veteran, there are opportunities for you to spend an entire month in a park and creating your art. An entire month. Now, would you spend a whole month in there, in a park?
Well, if I could, that would be amazing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Right now, one of their top ones is the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Believe it or not, I know it's still going. We've been interviewing people over there, so that's cool. Everyone, the website is nationalparksartsfoundation.org, and don't forget, Big Blend Radio airs Sundays through Fridays. You can get the full schedule at bigblendradio.com. Listen as shows go live or listen on demand. And we've got a song for you, just to get you out into New Mexico. And we thought that maybe Chaco, Cultural National Historic Site, would be a good one for you. Have you been to Chaco?
I have not.
Okay,
it's on my list,
this is your inspiration.
Sure. Good.
Well, it's a good photographer's park. I also for sky photographers, dark sky photographers, they have an observatory there. And but everyone, this is called Chaco. It is from the Tall Men group. We love the Tall Men. This is off of their first album together called 12 by 6, because it's 6 tall men and they have 2 songs each on the album. You can keep up with them at tallmengroup.weebly.com. Thanks so much, Rob. You take care and happy travel.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I remember these canyon walls. I remember desert wind. And though I've never been here before, it's good to be back here again. It's good to be back here again. Oh, Chaco, you were my home. And part of me still here, with these same eyes, but a different face in this place. The time is long since gone. Oh, Chaco, you were my home. I remember turquoise in my hand. I remember stars at night. I remember walking a dusty road. I don't remember how I died. I don't remember how I died. Oh, Chaco, you were my home. different face in this place. The time is long since gone. Old Chaco, you were my home. A glimpse behind the curtain, the shadow on the wall, a vision I can never grasp. A few pieces of the puzzle, fragments of the truth. These memories from my ancient past. Old Chaco, you were my home, and part of me still here. With these same eyes, but a different face in this place. The time is long since gone. Old Chaco, you were my home. I remember these canyon walls. I remember desert winds.